These are the massive changes in sort of the economics of the world that will bring crypto, the only free market left in the world, and to an extent gold, to levels that fiat price levels that we would not find, that are unimaginable. And so that's why I think that's how we get to $1 million Bitcoin. You know, it's 250,000 is a stop on the way. It's this realignment of the chessboard, and everybody on the board is going to print money to help themselves out.
Hayes argues that all these dynamics point to one undeniable conclusion. Bitcoin is poised for an explosive bull run. Bitcoin has already been trading ahead of global liquidity trends, anticipating Trump's return and the ensuing inflationary policies. The price surged from $70,000 to $110,000 in anticipation of increased liquidity. Despite temporary liquidity setbacks, the long-term macroeconomic picture supports continued Bitcoin growth. Once money printing begins in earnest, Bitcoin will reprice at levels previously unimaginable. Hayes confidently states that Bitcoin reaching $250,000 is just a waypoint, with $1 million per BTC becoming a likely scenario as fiat currencies undergo massive devaluation.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Well, I think if you listen to what Trump and Besson and all of his lieutenants want to do, they want to rearrange the world around the U.S. Take them at their word, whatever. But that requires a lot of money printing. It requires destroying the real value of government bonds in the United States. It's the only way they can do what they want to do. It requires massive amounts of bank credit creation to hand to companies to build things in America because they can't afford to do it because China's just so much better at it, right? So it requires trillions of dollars of money. It can only come via printing it. And they're going to use the ability to have the world's reserve currency to essentially reflate America. That's in America. In China, they need to do almost the same thing, a little bit different, right? They need to pump up their property market, get the plebs investing in stocks again, get them confident again, get inflation up. They need to print yuan as well. Japan needs to sell a bunch of shit and repatriate yen, and the US doesn't want them to sell the stuff. So the US is going to give them the money so they don't sell anything, right? Europe wants to decarbonize, but then shut off all their energy from Russia and shut off products from China and continue having the biggest welfare state in the world. So they need to print money as well. So everybody needs to do the same things to fulfill their goals. And I think the catalyst for getting into gear is, Trump and Besson have been very clear. We're going to weaken the dollar. We're going to increase credit creation, and that's going to create growth. We'll see if that actually happens or not. But at the end of the day, they're going to try, and they've been very consistent in that message. And if you listen to some of the macro analysts, I read, Zolt and Pazer and some other guys who a lot of these people listen to, what are the things they're talking about? Devaluing the dollar versus gold, telling friendly countries, hey, you have all these treasuries that mature in 10 years. Well, we're going to stuff you with a 100-year treasury. You can't sell it. I'll give you dollars for it if you need them. But if you want U.S. markets and U.S. security umbrella, you're going to take your treasuries and turn them into 100-year bonds, which is a massive devaluation. Or you're going to give us your gold and we're going to give you this piece of paper. And if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. That's what they're telling people. And so it's going to happen. And these are the sorts of things. These are the massive changes in sort of the economics of the world that will bring crypto, the only free market left in the world, and to an extent gold, to levels that fiat price levels that we would not find, that are unimaginable. And so that's why I think that's how we get to $1 million Bitcoin. It's 250,000 is a stop on the way. It's this realignment of the chessboard, and everybody on the board is going to print money to help themselves out. Post the Trump election in the United States, Bitcoin has traded ahead of the fundamentals in terms of global liquidity. So gets elected, he has this whole platform of how he's going to, make America great again, print a bunch of money, get companies to invest in American productive capacity, do lots of things in the crypto space, tax space, everything. It's going to be amazing in Trump world. And everybody else around the world to compete with America, is going to have to print money as well to help their own domestic industries, like in China and all those other countries. And unfortunately, it seems like the liquidity situation is disappointing. So moving over to the U.S., obviously the 10-year Treasury has been on a tear. Price down, yield up since the Fed started cutting rates in September of last year. And if you'll remember, it was quite interesting that the Fed started cutting rates right in the fall, right before an election cycle, probably to help Harris win. Obviously, she didn't. As soon as Trump gets elected, Powell's like, oh, I'm not resigning. There's been various former Fed governors, William Dudley to be specific, who wrote a very provocative op-ed in Bloomberg a few years ago saying how the Fed should actively use its power of influencing quantity of money and price to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get elected. And he was the president of the New York Fed, the most powerful Fed governor bar the chairperson for many years. So he definitely still has an influence. And at a recent press conference in November, right after the Trump election, Powell was asked, has anything changed because of the election? And he stated that, we're looking at some new super secret economic variables that might influence the trajectory of our path, which is code words for saying, maybe we slow down, maybe we start raising rates because of the election. So I think as much as Powell tries to play the I'm not a political person game, he's very political. Him and Trump don't like each other. Trump obviously is lambasting him over Bloomberg and, the newswire saying, cut the money. I need, cheap money and lots of money to revitalize American industry. And Powell is saying, oh no, I'm here to fight inflation. So obviously inflation is still above their target. So if they were going strictly by their own self-imposed measures, they shouldn't be cutting rates at all and raising them.
Hayes touches on the evolution of alternative blockchain platforms. Solana has emerged as a dominant force, outperforming Ethereum in transaction speed and cost efficiency. However, just as Ethereum once dominated before newer, more efficient platforms emerged, Solana faces the risk of being disrupted by even more innovative technologies. The battle among blockchain networks remains dynamic, but Bitcoin remains the primary asset benefiting from global fiat devaluation.
On the other hand, you have a federal deficit that's exploding higher. And I know people like to cite the Department of Government Efficiency, the meme department. That isn't a department at all. It's literally just an advisory position that Trump created for his boy Elon. An actual department requires U.S. congressional approval, and that hasn't happened yet. I have to say it won't, but Doge is literally just an advisory body. It has no power. Yes, Elon can memify, profligate government spending as much as he wants, but that's not new news. I don't think politicians particularly care. And if you're going to get reelected in 2026, are you going to go against your seniors and the defense industry and cut their spending, which is the major, 70% of government spending in the U.S. is healthcare and defense. Those aren't getting cut, in my opinion. So, the deficit isn't going anywhere. You have an antagonistic Fed. You have a Treasury maturity profile that's completely fucked up because the U.S. has to roll over something like $6 trillion of short-term debt at higher rates this year because Yellen wanted to juice the markets for Biden and Harris during their term. And so you have all this coming together, and you have a debt ceiling issue where, whether it's today or tomorrow, I don't know when the day is, the U.S. government cannot net issue any new debt to fund the government. And so Trump has a choice, I believe. He can either have a crisis happen today or, in the near future, 3 to 6 months, in terms of, an antagonistic Fed, a Treasury maturity profile that is not commensurate with affordability for the government and its programs, and the inability of the banking system to buy more of this debt. And the trigger for sort of, a little mini financial crisis could be, okay, I'm going to tell Bessent, the new U.S. Treasury Secretary, that he should not run down the checking account of the government to help forestall the government shutdown. Let's have this debt ceiling fight today. Every time there's a debt ceiling fight, everyone gets all up in arms. People get afraid that the U.S. government's not going to, pay out on its bonds, which is ridiculous. Of course, they're going to raise it. It's just a political game, and it depends on which particular congressperson or senator gets their piece of pork for their district. And so once they work all that stuff out, it'll get raised. The question is, what happens in the interim? Do we get sort of a liquidity flush out, get the Fed seeing religion again? You need to print money. You need to allow the banks to put as many treasuries on their balance sheet as possible to help Trump invest in, enact their campaign promises, stop being an asshole. The financial system, Pax Americana, the empire was going to crumble unless you give us the free money. So that's sort of my premise on the American side of things of why I think it's politically expedient for Trump to have the bad thing happen right now when he can blame it on Biden and Harris. Why have it happen in 6 months' time?
The earlier, the better.
It's your problem. And I also would add that China was supposedly reflating their economy, is going to be printing trillions of yuan to help their property market and asset markets as well. They were going to allow their currency to weaken. That's what happened from September of last year up until early January this year. And for whatever reason, there's lots of speculation as to why. I don't know why. Xi Jinping put the stops on that. The PBOC is no longer injecting buying government bonds, and they now are strengthening the currency, which is negative for fiat liquidity globally. So there you have the number 2 or number 1 largest emitter of fiat liquidity stopping in its tracks before they negotiate with Trump in terms of what the economic situation between U.S. and China is going to look like. And then the last piece would be the Bank of Japan has raised rates 25 basis points at their latest meeting last week. Again, yen is the premier funding currency of all financial assets. And so if you raise the price of yen money and the currency appreciates, people have to sell stuff. What do they sell? They sell U.S. tech stocks and they sell U.S. treasuries. So the largest 3 economic blocks and countries with regards to fiat liquidity are all either slowing down the pace of addition of liquidity, raising the price of money, or outright contracting the amount of money in circulation. So I think for a very short period of time, we have a perfect storm of, okay, Bitcoin went from 70,000 to 110 in 2.5 months based on Trump. Maybe he delivers these things in the back end, but right now, where's the money? And so that's why I think that we can have a meaningful correction, shake out some people, cause people to not believe in this bull market. And then that's when we get the free money, the printed money print to go burr, and we resume the bull market and go much higher. Obviously, it's Solana's game to lose at this point. You're going to have other chains like Aptos and other layer ones trying to come up there and say, oh, wow, look at all these transactions, look at all these fees. I need to be in there too. Don't sleep on Ethereum. Maybe they stop selling their fucking coins as a foundation and get their shit together and, come up with some sort of answer to this as well, right? It's the same story as NVIDIA, right? Ethereum back in 2020 was the NVIDIA of today, right? Super successful, trades at some ridiculous multiple. And then someone says, oh, I can do that better and cheaper and faster. Maybe it's not decentralized or whatever, right? You can make all these claims about what Solana is or isn't, or any of these other layer ones. In terms of security and all these sorts of things that Ethereum prides itself on. But at the end of the day, the customer doesn't give a fuck, right? It was fast, it was cheaper, I used it. You had something on there that was there, it wasn't on Ethereum, I used it. And so Solana, hopefully, for people who are massively long, that doesn't fall victim to the same thing as NVIDIA and Ethereum in terms of a faster beast, cheaper, shinier bauble on the rise is going to do meme coins better, or whatever it is, the new thing.
Arthur Hayes presents a masterful analysis of global economic trends, highlighting the inevitability of monetary expansion across all major economies. The geopolitical and financial landscape is aligning to create a perfect storm where fiat currency devaluation leads to unprecedented appreciation of Bitcoin and other scarce assets. While short-term liquidity fluctuations may cause market corrections, the long-term trajectory is clear. Governments will print, fiat will weaken, and Bitcoin will soar.